So finally, after all of the craziness that's been going on the last couple of days as regards to critics with this Superman movie, people that I know and respect liking it, people that I know and respect hating it, it's like, where was I going to fit into this part of the puzzle? Well, I've seen it now. And if in 1978 you can believe a man can fly, then in 2025 for Superman, the tagline should be, you'll believe a man can cry. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Yes, there's already been so much discussion around Superman, and it's not even out in some countries. It came out yesterday or Tuesday even for some people. Here's Thursday. It came out on Thursday for me. The UK, they don't even get the darn thing until tomorrow, Friday. So there's a lot of staggered conversation as regards to what people think. The critics are completely divided if you actually read their reviews. And even the people who I associate with, they are conflicted. There are some people whose opinions I respect, they like the film, and there's people whose opinions I respect don't like the film. And if you've listened to any of my streams that I've been participating in recent times as regards to the Superman discussion, my inkling, my feeling was that I was going to be leaving the cinema thinking, it was okay. Well, if I did leave the theater thinking it was going to be okay, that would have been an elevation to what I actually thought, because to be perfectly honest with you, I'm in a little bit of shock at what I just saw an hour or so ago. So I am going to keep this spoiler free. So if there is a bunch of you out there who haven't seen it, but you want to get some inkling about my impression without giving any of it away, then you're going to be okay to watch this. Using this still image from the movie, to me, is pretty much a great summation of the film in general. Superman starts down at the beginning of the film, and to be quite frank, pretty much remains there the whole of the film. In actual fact, the agency of Superman is quite lost in a lot of places, and I'm really confused by that. So if you are expecting to leave the cinema thinking that Superman is going to be this figure that heroes can look up to, this shining beacon, this leader, then I don't think that you're going to get that at all. So much so that even characters like Mr. Terrific, which isn't even a B-list DC character, completely and utterly outshines Superman in this film. And if I was a civilian in this world, I'd be looking at a character like Mr. Terrific to save me, not Superman. He's way more competent, way more confident, and way more capable of doing anything than Superman did. But I just want to pull it back for a little bit, because I actually want to talk first about things that I did find positive about the film, because there were some positives. I think there was some pretty good casting here. I think David Cornsweet does make a very good Superman, or at least has the capability to be a really good Superman. I don't personally think he had good enough writing behind him in this, and I don't think he had good enough direction in this either. But in terms of embodying Superman, I think he has the right stuff. And Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan, was also a good Lois Lane. Unfortunately, slightly hindered by the fact that there wasn't really enough of the Lois and Clark dynamic. There should have been a lot more. The movie went at such a frenetic pace that it never let anything sit. And so I couldn't really root for many characters because they were just doing stuff. As regards to the Justice Gang, as I've already mentioned, I thought Mr. Terrific was actually pretty damn cool. Favorite character in the movie. Guy Gardner was okay in small doses. Sometimes he was all right. Sometimes he was just highly annoying. And Hawk Girl, well, she was horrendous and I found quite embarrassing. I was exceedingly frustrated by Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor. Firstly, I think Nicholas is a fantastic actor and wasn't too sure at first, but then I saw a couple of other things. I was like, okay, maybe. And the film actually has some really good ideas with him in some areas. But by the end, he's just been turned into this blubbering, crying person. And what is the really weird thing is we've already seen the scene where Superman smashes into Lex's office and having a bit of a meltdown about crypto. And Lex does say, Superman, we meet for the first time. And judging by what Lex is doing in this film, I'm wondering, what throne do you think Superman is sat on that makes you feel like you need to dethrone him so badly? Because the film sure as hell didn't explain it in any capacity whatsoever. And that for me is pretty much the biggest problem with this film, is nothing is allowed to just sit. We're not allowed to absorb anything. It just goes at such a pace. This happens, and then that happens, and the other thing happens, and this comes into here, and that goes into there. That nothing is allowed to be absorbed. We're not allowed to rest on anything, take it in, mull it over. Oh, what's going to be the consequence of this? Because it's just on to the next thing and the next character, because there's just too many people doing too many things at once. Little threads, for instance, which could actually lead to some really interesting plot or conversation or action, are left really just dangling. For instance, you wouldn't believe it, but this guy right here plays a little bit of a part in the film later on. And I really wanted that to go further and the consequence of that to be felt later on in the movie. It wasn't. It was done and then moved on from, because the other thing had to happen, because stuff needs to stuff. Again, this part of the movie where the kids are crying out for Superman to come save them, to me ends up really embarrassing. Now, I know what James Gunn was trying to do with this, but I think he executed it absolutely terribly, particularly when the name of the film is Superman. Again, Metamorpho, a relatively interesting character in the film. There were some good ideas surrounding him, which the film executed pretty terribly. And that was the problem, because there's just too many characters. I was concerned that because of it, this film was going to be a bloated, convoluted mess. And now, having seen it, I can say that the movie is a bloated, convoluted mess. Now, whereas I am grateful that we don't have to go through another 2-hour movie of another origin story, because this is a new DCU with a new Superman, I don't think there would have been anything wrong at the beginning of the film if you placed the credits back there again. David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, etc., and just had a little montage of Krypton blowing up, to the pod, to landing on Earth, Ma and Pa Kent raising Clark as a boy with powers, seeing him go to Metropolis in whatever manner you see fit, artwork, little bits of animation or whatever, and then revealing himself to the world as Superman, and then it fades into the movie. So you've just got this couple of 3 minutes which allow you some flow into what's going on. But I think the way that the movie just kind of dumps you in there can be very jarring, particularly when it wants to throw every character under the sun. Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, etc., who 99% of people will have no idea who they are. The movie should have been allowed to focus on the characters which really mattered. Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, Ma and Pa Kent, maybe some more stuff in the Fortress of Solitude, but instead it just went throw everything at the wall, let's see what sticks. But I haven't even gone into some of the decisions that James Gunn made on purpose, which I think are absolutely horrendous when it comes to certain characters that we know and are very integral to the story of Superman. And there is a cameo towards the end where, holy cow, I don't know if they thought they were going to make that character appear to be likable, but that cameo made me want to have nothing to do with that character. And, well, when we get to the spoiler talk on Friday Night Tights tomorrow, I'm sure it'll be discussed in full. Ultimately, there was nothing super about this Superman at all. And I wanted to root for him in so many instances, but either the action scene that was going on was so basic, generic, or just non-interesting that I really couldn't, or the film just simply had other ideas and wanted to keep him consistently down. There was no looking up here, and Superman was not soaring in the slightest. Maybe snoring, but definitely not soaring. And I'll leave you with this, and for all the spoiler discussion, tune in tomorrow on Nerdrotic's channel for Friday Night Tights. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the only topic of conversation the whole stream. But there's been a lot of people liking this movie to a comic book coming to life. It's the most comic booky movie that the DC have done. And I would honestly agree with that. I do think that this is like a comic book come to life. Sadly, it's just a very badly written comic book. And that's the problem. It's as mid a film as I could ever see, so I've got to give it the mid score, 5 out of 10. I like to put a bit of a disclaimer to myself about how I feel about a movie. When I leave the theater, if I have a gut reaction that I want to see this again really quickly, it's a very positive reaction. I left this theater thinking I'll very likely never see this movie again. Certainly not by choice. And that is not what I want from a Superman film. It's such a shame because I think for the most part, they've got the right cast here. And I also think that there was a couple of good ideas that could have been explored in this movie. But ultimately, there were too many characters. It was too messy, too bloated, and just too convoluted. Instead of just focusing on what they really should have done, which was Superman. How can a character soar when it's not even allowed to take off? I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Bye for now.